So I'm going to share with you guys what actually happens, and I'll show you guys exactly how I prepare for a training. So I usually just am discipling 3 guys in about a 5 month, intensive, right? So they're coming over to my house. We do this twice a month during discipleship. They come over twice a month for a training meeting. So I'm like excited. The guys are going to come over. We're going to sit on the porch and have a training. So one example is one training that I love doing is falling in love with Scripture. So this is a DNA. I deeply love Scripture. This is something that God did in my life. Okay, so if I'm preparing, the only things I write down to prepare are the topic, my testimony, and a couple of texts. And there's a couple optional things that I'll share with you guys. But those are the 3 things I'll make sure I have. That's what only takes 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, when did this really happen to me? So I wrote down a few bullets on how on my testimony. 2 texts that for me are really big are Matthew 4, 1 through 11, and Psalm 1. And then when they show up, this is all I do. So we're going to talk about falling in love with Scripture. Again, this is not a teaching, this is impartation. I always start with a question like this. Describe your history with Scripture. So I'm just going to describe your history with topic. And how is it going now? That's what I ask. So we just go around. And this usually takes like 15 or 20 minutes during the training. So describe your history with Scripture. How's it going now? And so each of them were like, well, yeah, I grew up, my parents said this, so I just want to really understand where they're all starting from. Okay. Once all 3 of these guys have shared their history with Scripture, like what it means to them and how it's going now, and I just, they're hopefully being very transparent with me. Then I'm like, okay, let me share my story. So then I share my testimony. And this is just like I walk them through. And usually when you think about testimony, there's always 3 parts, right? You can write these down as bullet points if you want. But there's just the before, the turn, and then after, right? So it's like this is kind of where things were at. This is sort of the inflection point where things started to change for me. And since then, these are the things I've been practicing, and I just very practically talk about those things. So they're really getting an understanding of what I know, feel, and do in this area of Scripture. But this is just naturally coming out of like this is how I do it. This is how I feel about Scripture. This is what I know about the importance of Scripture. This is what I do. Now, then once I'm finished with giving my testimony, they've given kind of their testimony or their current state. I've given mine. Okay, we're probably about 30, 40 minutes into our training session. Then the last thing, the next thing we do is we go over the text. Okay, so like I said, let's read together Matthew 4, 1 through 11, and we're gonna read Psalm 1. Now, the cool thing about the scriptures is they pull out of you the rest of what you didn't share in your testimony. So we read it together, and every time I'm reading these passages, there's something because the Spirit's in me, and this is something I'm passionate about. Like things kind of pop up, and so as they're sharing, doing the basic, like let's observe, like observation, interpretation, application. Like, what do you guys see here? You just have these basic questions. What do you guys see here? What stood out to you? Okay, that stood out to you. And that just naturally gives rise to questions about, well, what does that mean? Right? That's the interpretation. And then, well, what do we do? And that's the application. And then towards the end, we just sort of like, is there an activation? This is something that I would challenge you to like, this is the last part of the prep. So you could write down the topic, your testimony, the text, and then some kind of activation or assignment that you would give them that this would help them in their life experience what you experience in this one area. So that's the prep. So that's like I said, it takes 5 to 10 minutes to write down and I'll show you guys real quick. Just share this part of my screen so you guys can see this as well. So this is my catalog of trainings. So I got family skills, discipleship skills, personal skills. The one I just went over with you guys is this one here, falling in love with Scripture. My testimony with the Plymouth Brethren, that's from my history, and the text. And then having an annual Bible literacy plan. That's my assignment. Is to help them work out that. So anyway, this like usually takes me like 3 to 5 minutes to write down things in these areas, and then I'm ready to rock for the training meeting. Again, all I'm doing is asking them, these questions. I have it up here. Describe your history with and the topic, and how's it going now, or how you feeling now, or what's going on now. Right? Share my testimony, read the passages, assign the activation. That's a training, and man, these are really effective because they are catching what's going on inside of you, and so. And also, I want to encourage you guys to understand there is a skill to this. It's not the skill of teaching exactly. It's just the skill of being comfortable sharing your testimony, having that conversation. When you get into the Bible study, just having those 2 or 3 questions in your back pocket. What stood out to you is the observation question. What does that mean? Is the interpretation question. What do we do in light of this? Is the application question. You got those 3 questions. You can study any part of Scripture and really begin to understand what it means. Again, these are passages that are going to mean a lot to you. They're going to like pull out of you like interpretations and applications that you're already passionate about, because we're limiting our discipleship to what we have to give to people. So, but that's what we want to do is just, but this skill over time, it's going to get easier and easier for you to do this. The first time it's going to be like, okay, that was a slightly clunky. Maybe I forgot this part of my testimony or whatever, but it was great. They got a lot out of it. The next time it's going to be like, you're going to be on fire. And after that, it'll be much easier. Like, wow, I get so excited, every year when I get to share this thing that it also reignites the DNA inside of you. It's one of the cool kind of elements of that.